This episode of It's the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine was made possible by contributions from slaves like you. Thank you very much.
Frankfurt's a place that works.
The landscape of the city is changing all the time. New areas are being developed, new buildings are going up, new parts of the city are becoming interesting. It's actually a place where it's very easy to have a very high quality of life.
Frankfurt people are very friendly. They do a lot of jogging, a lot of healthy activities in the weekends or during lunchtime.
It's also a city that increasingly provides more and more of the things that make a bigger city exciting.
There is an excellent concert hall here. I never go alone, I go with friends. It relaxes me. It's something that we do together and it connects us.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.
Good morning, slaves, and welcome to another edition of It's the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine, the show that fights empire with barbarian tactics. I am host of Stimulator, and last week a horde of barbarians from across Europe descended on Frankfurt, Germany to crash an uber-exclusive tie and monocle gathering of EU's top bankers, who were in town to celebrate the grand opening of a brand new $1.4 billion HQ for the gangsters at the European Central Bank. Troublemakers kicked shit off with an early morning blitzkrieg on the Frankfurt porkers, rushing a nearby pig station and torching 4 Schweinmobiles. Over the course of the morning and early afternoon, militants kept up the pressure by erecting barricades, setting tires, garbage bins, and several luxury sports cars alight, and launching volleys of stones and other projectiles at police lines, injuring 14 of them. The German Popo responded by showering the motherfucking resistance with water cannons and tear gas and arresting over 300 peeps. While the vast majority of these comrades have since been released, at the time of this show's writing, Federico Annibale, an Italian student studying at the London School of Oriental and African Studies, is still being held in solitary, pretrial detention without charges, in violation of German law. After this militant start to the day's activities, shit capped off later that afternoon with a bigger march that brought upwards of 30,000 peeps into the streets. This demo sported a number of colorful banners, flags, props, and activist clowns, creating an atmosphere reminiscent of similar marches held during the height of the anti-globalization movement.
This is what I'm suffering in my life every day. What is all the people around me suffering every day, not having a future, not having basically a right, dignities, welfare. That's real violence, no? That desperation. But we are not here to lose. Yeah? That the sense of losing everything is the violence.
And, in an authentic nod to the anti-globalization era, no sooner had the clouds of tear gas cleared than spokespeople from Blockupy, the pan-European coalition of leftist students, trade unions, and social justice activists that organized the M18 Day of Action, began rushing to distance themselves from the more militant tactics that had been so courageously carried out earlier that morning.
There were these blockades, and it is true that folks from the blockades were clearly out to engage the police. It's understandable why there is this rage. However, expressing rage is not the same as having a political strategy to change the things that are actually causing the suffering that is causing your rage. So I'd say there was a lot of rage in the street in the morning, but in the afternoon and evening that had been transformed into a sense of hope, into a sense that we can lead a European struggle from below against these institutions and maybe win.
Despite this strong sense of deja fucking vu, one thing was different this time around. The Blockupy hater brigade wasn't just your average mix of run-of-the-mill moderates, conservative union brass, and authoritarian pacifists, but also included up-and-coming politicians from rockstar leftist parties such as Grises Syrizas, Spain's Podemos, and Germany's Die Linke. So, exactly what the fuck were these politicians doing helping to coordinate blockades in the financial heart of Deutschland, you may ask?
I am really impressed by the work that's been done.
Well, after years of painful austerity measures, Prescribed by the caviar-sucking Schweizekoffs at the ECB, many Europeans are sick and tired of this shit, and the politicians who keep trying to sell it to them. This generalized crisis in confidence has helped fuel some pretty epic fucking riots.
Yes! Finally! Yes!
But it has also witnessed a corresponding rise of a new generation of political parties who have effectively used the streets as a means of building and consolidating their base of support. Syriza's recent electoral victory, which relied heavily on its coalition of grassroots street-level activists, is a good case in point, and its formula is one that's being closely followed by other groups like Podemos and Die Linke. But the left is not alone in having benefited from this crisis. On the far right end of the spectrum, neo-Nazi parties like Greece's Golden Dawn and Jobbik in Hungary have also made effective use of populist rallies, marches, and nationalistic social programs, whipping their supporters into violent mobs and focusing their anger on Jews, immigrants, and other oppressed groups like the Roma. This tried and tested fascist strategy, combined with strong ties to the pigs, makes these groups a serious threat, both on the street and in future elections. Other right-wing parties such as Marine Le Pen's National Front in France and the UK Independence Party have also seen their poll numbers soar, as the austerity dictates coming out of Frankfurt have become more and more normalized. National Front is currently polling in first place in France and is expected to win upcoming regional elections, while UKIP swept European parliamentary elections last year. Both parties are staunchly nationalist and have argued for the need to cut back on immigration, pull the respective countries out of the European Union, and take control over fiscal policy back from the technocrats of the ECB. Right now, leftist groups like Syriza, Podemos, and Die Linke seem to represent the best opportunity for the Eurozone to stabilize itself by tapping into growing anti-capitalist sentiment and recuperating it into electoral dead ends. But this is a dangerous fucking game to be playing, as these scams only work for a short while before people figure out that they've been duped and get fucking pissed. If the left keeps writing checks that its ass can't cash, then the next time elections roll around, things could get pretty fucking scary. Anarchists in Greece seem to be well aware of this fact and made their feelings on the subject crystal fucking clear, with some fresh riots on February 26. A few days after Syriza agreed to extend conditions on the loans Greece owes its more cash-flush neighbors. These were the first riots since Syriza was elected in January, and they sent a strong message: no matter who gets elected, real power lies in the streets. While some of the peeps from Blockupy were quick to denounce the street fighting and vehicular bonfires that kicked off the M18 riots in Frankfurt, it's also pretty clear that this sentiment was not shared by all of the event's organizers. Most anarchists who have worked in coalitions with other groups to try and pull off big demos are familiar with this type of bullshit, and historically have put shit tons of energy into coming up with ways to anticipate the shrill cries for non-violence that break out every time shit hits the fan, so as to minimize political fallout. So, to get a different take on how things went down, I spoke with Peter, a member of Ganze, a Germany and Austria-based anti-capitalist network which participated in the broader Blockupy coalition. Hey Peter, how the fuck are you?
I'm good for now. It took a while because the protests in Frankfurt were really stressful and exhausting, but now I'm really good and enjoying what happened there and finding back into daily life.
So, for our viewers outside of Europe, what the fuck is Blockupy and what's its beef with the ECB?
Well, Blockupy is a coalition with the aim to criticize and tackle austerity, crisis policy and capitalism in Europe. and it embraces a very wide political field of the left, reaching from parties over progressive organizations or NGOs, till also groups from the radical left and anarchist groups. It was founded 2012 in Germany, but expanded very quickly to a European coalition. And it chose the city of Frankfurt as a stage, so to say, because it is the host of the ECB, the European Central Bank. The ECB is less considered a usual bank, but rather a political institution, because it is one key player of the so-called Troika. The others are the European Commission and the IMF. And the Troika is maybe the most important responsible and executor, if you want so, for the current crisis policy, which leads to political and social disasters, especially in South Europe.
Your organization, Ums Gan, is part of another coalition, Beyond Europe. What's the difference between Beyond Europe and Blockupy? And how are the two groups related?
Well, Beyond Europe is the European-wide anti-authoritarian, anti-capitalist platform we are part of. Well, next to Ums Gan, there's a group from Cyprus, then there's a network from the UK, Plan C, and the anarchist network Anti-Authoritarian Movement from Greece. They are all part of Beyond Europe. The difference now is that Blockupy was a coalition, or is a coalition, for working for one happening in the first place. That was the opening of the European Central Bank last Wednesday. Beyond Europe has by far more perspective than that, and it's planned to be a long-term thing. But as Beyond Europe, or great part of Beyond Europe, we were also part of this international anti-authoritarian mobilization to Frankfurt, and so contributing to Blockupy, if you want so. But now after Blockupy, we also have different things in focus with Beyond Europe. For example, the rise of right-wing and reactionary parties and movements in Europe and the urge to fight them.
Leftists in North America have been going apeshit over Syriza's recent election victory in Greece. Germany's got its own Syriza-like party, Die Linke. And from over here, it seems like they're pretty involved with organizing with radical groups. What the fuck is that all about?
Well, I think first of all, Syriza is what used to be a left social democratic party in Europe in the early 20th century. It's not a revolutionary party. The election of Syriza is, amongst others, the expression of a big economic and social crisis in Greece. The people there are, they are tired of the big corrupt parties that just administrate the country technically, and that were in the last years being subdued by the Troika. So Syriza, on the other hand, stands for a progressive idea of taking life into their own hands. Let's see what they will be able to change. It's clear that they cannot do anything if they stay the only left party in Europe in power. As you mentioned, Syriza and also the left party in Germany, Die Linke, have a tradition to work with the extra parliamentary left, such as us, mainly in coalition on certain topics. Blockupy was similar. In Germany, for example, the most prominent example over the years is that the radical Antifa and the left party and other organizations learn to work together in big anti-Nazi coalitions, for example. And this whole coalition thing is not about selling your radical soul or something like that, but it's just in order to be more effective against Nazis. So this is basically the thing about the left parties in Europe and radicals working together.
In addition to these new left-wing groups, we've also seen a big rise in old-school right-wing European nationalist parties, with lots of peeps talking about wanting to pull out of the EU. How's that playing out in Germany?
Well, pulling out of the euro is not really an option in Germany right now, since the German success on the world market and its national success, if you want so, is actually linked to the European Union and the euro, because Germany has a very strong export-oriented economy. For a few years, though, a new right-wing, reactionary and populist party has emerged, the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. They want to exclude the weakest national economies in Europe from the euro, for example Greece, and have a common currency only for the strongest. Besides that, they have a very conservative view on family values and want to impose an even more racist and law and order migration policy. They are struggling to get the 5% nationally of votes at the moment, so they can enter national parliament and increase their power. But the AfD is a very good example for a new right-wing, Eurocritic movement to come up in Europe the last years.
Lately, there's a movement of Islamophobes calling itself Pegida that's been holding giant fucking rallies in Dresden. How much support do they have in mainstream German society, and how have radicals and Antifa types been reacting to this growing threat?
It's true, the rallies in Dresden were huge and still are big. In other cities, they luckily have a rather small base. In my opinion, Pegida can be seen as one of the expressions of the fact that the crisis has also hit Germany, with the completely wrong political consequences, of course. Pegida is strong in East Germany, where the economic success is still not the same as in the West. People on the streets who go out with the Pegida marches, they are worried about their status, their social status, their rent, job possibilities for their children, etc. So this is a class thing and the result of austerity politics in Germany for years. But don't get me wrong, I do not want to qualify Pegida or justify Pegida at all. I mean, their consequence is a racist, heavily reactionary and nationalist rollback. They want to ban Islam in Germany practically. They promote extremely patriarchal family values. They want to let even more refugees die at the European borders than they are dying anyway now, and so on. Their organizational structure, by the way, is also filled with known Nazis. So they are the enemy. It's no question about that. And this is also how they are treated by the Antifa and most left groups, but also by the most liberals, luckily. The problem is that their strategy to talk about their disgusting worldview is one where they are able to come close and to establish contact to conservative mainstream. So several conservatives appear to take them seriously, to talk to them, and they are still a danger we have to take very serious here.
And that about that's it for this edition of It's the End of the World as We Know It and I Feel Fine. I'd like to say danke schön to all of the slaves who transfer us euros so that we can continue subverting the old continent. So, a big danke spank you to Serena, Blade, Steve, Carlos, Alexander, Steven, Raster, Raul, Harry, Nicholas, Christoph, Deda, Colleen, Chris, Noemi, Garrick, Robin, Michael, Monica, Justin, Liam, Anders, Brad, Chris, Claire, Mallory, Jennifer, Benjamin, Valentin, Francois, Kobe, Misha, Shannon, Miguel, Dylan, Kyle, Stephen, Christian, Edward, Jonathan, Samantha, Lemil, Sarah, Ricky, and Gregory. Sauerkraut. I also like to welcome in the newest members of the Da Conspiracy. Samantha, Kobe, Mallory, and Claire. Schnitzel. I also want to let you motherfuckers know that Submedia.tv will be doing a mini fucking tour of the West Coast with the Laz and Savage fam. You can get details on that, a list of the songs we played on the show, as well as links to Ums Gan at my fucking website, stimulator.tv. Stay tuned next time for a report on the Montreal student insurrection happening right fucking now. Auf Wiedersehen, motherfuckers.